How should a wife respond to a husband that is less than generous with his time, even if she's doing all of these things?
How should she respond? That's the good part. Okay, well.
Response gives a choice.
Yes, it does. So with that word, choice, you have to go back to the Lord. Okay? Is God just going to write you off because you didn't continue to talk to me nicely, or you didn't pick up your clothes like you have been for 4 days, or boy, you're just not, your words are just not great like they were a month ago or something like that. Is he changing his decision that he saved me?
No.
So he is there through it all, no matter what. I believe that a wife should be the same way. Absolutely, you are not going to agree. You are not going to be happy with the way things are going. But if you take yourself out of it, look at God's picture for you and say, okay, this is your husband. You married him, better or worse. If you truly believe that, then you stick it out and I don't want to say deal with it, because that just sounds like you're just okay with it. You're not okay with it. So you have to have conversations. And I would hope that it would change after a while, and that, that the conversations would make your spouse aware, or your husband, since we're talking wives to husband. I don't know off the top of my head of anyone personally that it hasn't worked for. It may be years, but if you are walking with Christ daily and you are relying on him and then praying, not a prayer of change this man, because I can't deal with this anymore. Change me. What needs to be changed in me? Let him see you through me.
I love that.
Then it falls into place where God knows. You could have a husband that's going to be against it from till the time you die, but you were steady, you believed in your husband, and that's God-given, because that's what he wants you to do.
It almost sounds like you're saying that our marriages are a ministry.
Well, yeah, don't you feel that way?
I kind of do.
Yeah.
I do.
Absolutely. From day one, you're ministering even before you get married, is the way I look at it. And then you bring in kids and you're ministering to them. I mean, it's just continual, and it is continual, because then it's just not your household. Your relationship outside of a church or at a restaurant, you're ministering to everybody around you.
Ooh, that's good. And, again, I'm just thinking, you have adult kids, and I'm thinking from future tense. As a wife that can minister to her husband and kids that way, you're also ministering to your kids' future relationships,
Absolutely.
Right? And you can attest to that because all of your kids are married now, right? All 4 of them. So
one of them is engaged.
Okay.
So we're just waiting for the wedding.
Courtship.
But yes.
Yeah. So 3 out of the 4
Yes.
are married.
Yes.
And I'm guessing you're seeing the ramifications or benefits of how you and Skip
Yes.
treated each other.
Yes.
So can you talk about that a little bit?
Oh gosh, it's just so, there's a little bit of pride there, because when you see fruit like that, it's just, when you can see it, we have, and everybody says this, but we have 4 of the best kids. I mean, they are, and they have a relationship with God. And that is from, especially Skip. He is the head of the household, and he has brought that and taught that in our family. But he didn't diminish me either. He didn't belittle me, nothing. I was there alongside of. I definitely had input into how we raised the kids. We were on the same page. We made that, that was a definite when we first, got together. And it was, it wasn't really like purposeful, but it was not like, this is what we're going to do, A, B, C. It was, this is what we're going to do.
Oh.
And then let's make sure that they see that, but just on a daily basis. So it was everyday things. Oh, absolutely. I got mad one time. Well, probably more times. But one time I cursed. And Trey was with me, our youngest. And he was like, I'm telling Daddy on you. And I'm like, oh, shoot. But it was, and with that, you tend to start watching, especially when you have kids. You start watching more of how you talk and what you're saying to each other, to them, to people around you. Because that's, first and foremost, it has to be you and him before anybody else. But then if you're doing this the way he wants you to, then this with your spouse, in my case with my husband, then that should be almost natural. And I don't want to say easy, because marriage is not easy. It is a work in progress, absolutely. But if you do it the way Scripture says, it makes sense. It really does. You're not butting the system, if that's a better way to say it.
Yeah.
You start going against what is proven, then you're just opening yourself up for anxiety and just bleh, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's something that Kendra and I'm happy to say, we didn't see marriage as the target. We saw eternity as the target. And that changes the way that we look at situations within our marriage. We've both said at the onset that divorce was not on the table.
Okay.
Never going to be on the table. Because when you make those vows, you're literally saying to the person, I'm going to accept you for every piece of baggage you bring in. So that can't be, oh my gosh, now that this person annoys me or I'm tired of this habit they have, that I'm just going to cast them aside. That's not what marriage is. So I think a lot of people see marriage as a goal. They don't see eternity as a goal. And it's like, if I were to mistreat my wife or divorce my wife, then I could create a speed bump, a hill, a mountain for my daughter and my son, because now they aren't going to understand what a lifelong commitment looks like.
Correct.
They aren't going to be able to take a spiritual concept and see it in a natural realm, and that might cause them some issues down the road as well. So Kendra and I are very aware of the need to constantly show our kids, yes, mommy and daddy may argue, but we forgive each other. Mommy and daddy are able to playfully banter with each other. We're able to wrestle. We're able to do whatever it is. And at the end of the day, we're also able to show them we love Jesus. And it's because we love Jesus that we're not giving up on each other. It's because we love Jesus that marriage is not the destination. We are looking at it from a far deeper, far further reaching aspect. And I'm glad that God put her in my life with the same ideals in that way, right? Because I came from a broken family. Her parents are in their late 70s, and they've been married for 50 something years. So for her, it was a lot easier, I think, to understand that concept. But for me, luckily my mom is a prayer warrior. So she raised me in a way to understand, like, the goal is not to get married. The goal is eternity. and understanding how to love your spouse through thick and thin, even though she didn't receive that kind of thing. So yeah, I just think that when people see it that way, they don't see marriage as the destination. They see beyond that and what their marriage can do, what can be expanded upon from that marriage. I think we start to see marriage in a different light. And I'm happy to say that, you and Skip being our sort of my adopted spiritual parents, I'm like, I can always have a beacon where I'm like, okay, if I'm feeling a certain way, or if I'm losing sight of why I'm married in the first place, I can always come to you. I can always go to Skip and say, am I thinking about this the right way? Am I, and I love the fact that you and he are willing to say, Cannell, you're being an idiot.
And we have.
You have. And I can admit that, but that I don't take it in a defensive way. Right. I'm like, yeah, I'm not seeing it the right way. Yeah, I haven't told Kendra I love her enough, or I haven't told her whatever, or I haven't done this enough. I'm willing to take that feedback because I understand that the way I treat my wife has a rippling effect across generations.
That's good.
And if I'm going to be the one in my family, in my lineage, that breaks that generational curse of divorce and mistrust and all these things, then I need to be aware at all times how I am treating my wife and how that's going to affect our children and their children and their children's children, because I don't want the blessing of God to be hindered by my behavior and my actions. So I love the fact that, like I said, that I can lean on you two and just say, I said this or I did this. Am I wrong here? And 9 times out of 10, I'm wrong. So I shouldn't have recorded that, because now Kendra's gonna hold that over my head. She's gonna be like, I told you.
Repeat.
Yeah, exactly. She's just gonna loop that last 30 seconds and then hold it against me. Yes. Anytime we have an argument, she's gonna be like, hold up, let me play this back. Yeah, but I do. I'm so appreciative of that. And I think that every single couple needs that. We need another couple or two that we are just looking at and saying, like, pull us along with you, guide us, because we need that. And too often I see couples getting advice from people that have either been married the same amount of time or less. And I'm like, there is no reason. There's no reason. I am not. My wife and I should never get advice from people that have been married for 2 years, right? like
yeah, especially not less than what you've been married. I mean, that's
or even 10 or 11 like we are. I'm like, there's nothing they can tell us that is going to say we've been through that. Right. I get that different situations happen, but they don't have enough longevity to be like, listen, this is what this next decade it might bring you. This is how you deal with this. You and Skip dealt with cancer. You've dealt with all these other things. We haven't dealt with that, but we can look to that and be like, how did they make it through that? How did they get through that? How did they get their kids through the teenage years? How did they get through, kids having kids out of wedlock? How did they do all these things that we have yet to get to? That's why we need people that have gone through it.
That's awesome. And I'll be honest, I mean, Skip and I, now we have good families. My family, I knew I could talk to my dad. So I did have that. I wish I had him longer to talk to, because now I'm older. So it was more of a natural, like I didn't really have to work at I had to work at how I communicated, because like I said, sometimes it doesn't come out so good. But learning from that, learning that it's okay to say you're sorry, even as an adult. That is not so easy for people. My dad never did.
Really?
He was a great dad, but he was never sorry. He would put it back at you like, well, if you wouldn't have done that, I wouldn't have yelled. So that was one thing I was specific about when Skip and I started having children. It was, if I'm wrong, my kids are going to know I'm wrong. I'm not going to be happy to say it, but it's amazing. After the first time you say it, it literally becomes easier. And then they see, oh, mom's not always right. Dad's not always right. You know, they make mistakes. So showing them that too. And then in a marriage, it's the same thing. He's not always right. Most of the time he is, but he's not always. And I'm not. I know that. But we can admit that to each other. Ah, shoot, that was dumb. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have said it that way. And now that it's part of who we are as a couple, it's easy. Like, you don't have to, oh gosh, I got to apologize. I don't want to apologize. You know, you're not upsetting yourself about it. It is just, no, you know, okay, I was wrong. And then you go and you say, I was wrong. And that's, I know, it can be hard.
It can be.
It can be. Especially you don't want to be wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that's a good point for people to understand.